There is one thing every author should know. In book publishing, nothing is the way it was. Nothing. And it's changing again right now. I'm Gary Lindbergh, a best-selling author of thrillers and historical fiction. These are the buzzwords you're probably hearing today. Self-publishing, indie author, ebooks. Let's take them in order. Self-publishing. The kiss of death for a serious author, right? According to the disparaging term vanity publishing, which was invented by the big New York book publishers to scare authors away from cutting into their power base, self-publishing is only for losers. For talentless writers who aren't good enough to land an agent or a publisher. Of course, this concept was introduced by agents and publishers, even though successful authors like Mark Twain, Charles Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, even Vince Flynn knocked the idea on its ear. What really was the motivation to tear down the idea of self-publishing? Probably to keep more books from entering the marketplace, where they could compete with the big publishers' books. How would that work? Well, if you were swayed from the demeaning act of self-publishing, you'd have to go after an agent or one of the big publishers. Of course, these days it's practically impossible to land one of these gatekeepers. Ever tried? I have. For those authors who've been successful, the average effort in landing an agent, usually a prerequisite before landing a publisher, because publishers generally won't even consider an unagented book. The average effort is something like over 100 query letters and nearly a year spent sending them out. So let's say that a year from now, you actually land an agent. Your agent starts the process of presenting your book to publishers. Success rate? 5 to 10% of agented books ever get published by the big houses. After 6 months, your agent will either get you a publishing deal or simply give up and tell you not to be discouraged and to write a more marketable book next time. Let's say that 6 months later, your agent actually gets a publisher interested. What kind of deal will you get? Well, if this is your first book, you'll get maybe a $1,000 advance against royalties. And those royalties? Those will be something like 15% of softcover sales, less expenses, and maybe 30% of ebook sales. Oh, and it will probably take about 9 months for your book to hit the bookstores and Amazon, because frankly, that's just how it works. Very slowly. But you'll be in the queue. Now here's the deal. Your publisher won't spend much money, probably any money, on promoting your book. Except maybe sending announcement flyers out to bookstores. Why not? Because it's your first book. You have no following. No one, not the publisher or the bookstores, really think your book will sell. So why spend money on a lost cause? If your book turns out to be a breakout hit, because of your untiring personal promotional efforts, or a lucky review in the New York Times, which is kind of like winning the lottery, then your next book may get a promotional budget. Otherwise, the marketing is really up to you. The publisher, naturally, is standing there with you, ready to gobble up 85% of the royalties if your book is the 1 in 1,000 to break out. So it's taken you 2¼ years now to get your book to market. And it sells 480 copies, just about average. Your royalties on those books is less than the advance you got. And 6 weeks after your book was launched, it's now old news. It gets pulled from the shelves, and the unsold copies get shipped back to the publisher, who deducts your share of those returns from your advance. You still owe the publisher money. Great system, huh? If you had self-published, you could have written and released 3 books, or maybe more in that same period of time, and be well on your way to developing a following. Instead of getting a sales report from the publisher every 6 months, you would have received a check for royalties every month, if there were any. That's called cash flow. The second buzzword, indie author, means what exactly? No one really knows, except it sounds better than self-published author to some folks. After all, in music, Where the big record companies have now virtually disappeared, indie music is now the standard bearer, a badge of courage. It's where the excitement in music comes from. Same with indie films. Has a positive ring to it. Indie author simply means that your book was not published by a traditional book publisher. The third buzzword is ebooks. This means digital books published for Kindles, Nooks, Kobos, and other ebook readers or apps. The truth is, ebooks are rapidly taking over the book market. In the US, PricewaterhouseCoopers projects that by 2017, ebook sales will equal sales of all print and audiobooks in the US, a combined $16 billion business. Clearly, the big growth is in ebooks. Ebooks are the main reason why the traditional publishers are losing their stranglehold on the book market, which they've dominated for centuries through their distribution network for physical books and their self-proclaimed mastery of the art of book production. It is relatively inexpensive for an author these days to convert a manuscript into an ebook. And with print-on-demand technology now available, even paperback copies can be created without the burden of ordering large quantities of books, and warehousing them, and fulfilling orders, and processing returns. The mechanics are no longer a barrier. This is why it seems that everybody is self-publishing a book these days, which, of course, produces a new dilemma. Actually, the same dilemma foreseen by the traditional publishers decades ago. Competition is outpacing demand, and you know what that means. The average sales per book is declining. A book today has less than a 1% chance of being stocked in an average bookstore. And most book marketing today is done by authors, not by publishers. In fact, most book proposals from agents and experienced authors now have many pages detailing the author's marketing platform and what the author will do to market the book. Kind of what you'd expect to do if you self-published, right? But what this all means is that self-publishing today is a lot more than releasing your title as an ebook or a print-on-demand trade paperback. To self-publish today, well, let me give you a short list of what you need to do. You need to write and create a really good, marketable book that will attract buyers and be free from the editorial and proofreading errors that plague most self-published books and rankle readers. Most authors, myself included, simply can't edit and proofread their own work. As I say, all authors should seek professional help to make their manuscripts better, which means more competitive in the marketplace. You need to master the craft of book design, including a compelling cover. And by the way, does your cover pop when it appears the size of a postage stamp on an Amazon page? Most don't. Do all your table of contents links in the Kindle version actually work? If you're not at the top of your game here, better seek professional help. You need to learn how to market your book in a host of traditional and new marketing channels. Which ones work and which are a waste of money? How about social media and PR? Where should you spend your time? Do you know how to analyze demographic data, compare the ROI of ad campaigns, speak like a pro to library groups, optimize your Amazon book pages? And by the way, do you understand the incredible value of Amazon reader reviews and how to get them? Most authors doom their book to failure by doing all the wrong things and almost none of the useful things to market their book. These authors should seek professional help. You also need to establish and promote your own personal author brand. Without the right kind of reputation, in breadth and value for the reader, you may be doomed to selling books only when they are deeply discounted. People pay list price these days only for authors they know and trust. How will you become one of those authors? If you're a serious author, don't try to do it all by yourself. You don't have to. Get in touch. We'll actually get back to you right away. This could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership.